Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rake the Take, a golf betting podcast hosted by me, Chris Lewis. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about the Players' Championship, which takes place at TPC Sawgrass. And TPC Sawgrass should really need little introduction if you're a golf fan. This is obviously one of the most iconic venues on the PGA Tour since they have this tournament here every year. And it's known as the fifth major by many people and players probably as well. But anyways, yeah, no, it's a great course and it requires an immense amount of strategy and golf IQ. You really need to get around this place with precision and accuracy and know where maybe you need to miss some of your approach shots if you're in trouble. There is so much there are so many hazards, I should say, around this course, specifically water hazards and some difficult bunkers and runoff areas where you need to get up and down. So having a good around the green game and good ball striking is very critical for this week. From a statistical perspective, obviously a tee to green game is very much necessary at this course, but putting is not has not necessarily been the most predictive skill set at this course. But yeah, no, TPC Sawgrass, it creates a lot of variance because of the amount of hazards and difficult holes in general, especially on the back nine. Um, the final three-hole stretch is one of the most iconic and difficult, I would say, on the PGA Tour, given the amount of pressure and accuracy that you need on 17 and 18, just to be able to even scratch out a par at times. If you do play those holes well, they can be scoreable. But in general, they are very difficult closing holes. It just it requires a complete game to be able to win here. And that's why, we've really seen in the most recent years the winner come from the top of the board. The top players have in recent history really shown out at this event. But historically, this is a place where there is so much variance typically. You look at some of the winners like Sibu Kim and Fred Funk, it is very much possible for someone deep down the board to win at this event. And that's honestly kind of where I'm focusing my bets this week for the card. I really just did not see too much value at the top of the board. Especially last week after we took Morikawa at plus 2,000. He's now plus 1,100, I believe, on my book. And I just think, given how much he's been able to close recently, that's not really a price I want to take. I think he's very much a player I want to avoid for this week. Not that I don't think he can't win. It's just that at that number, that just seems off. But you do have some guys like Rory at 14-1 and Ludwig at 16-1, and I just still was way too rich for my blood. It's even a Xander at 28-1. I took him last week, but he really did not have a great showing. The only guy really, obviously, at the top of the board that I'm going to be even interested in taking is Patrick Cantlay, and that's just because he's my favorite golfer. I would not necessarily recommend that you bet him, but me, I'm willing to waste money on Patrick Cantlay any week. He's my favorite guy, and I'm gonna root for him till I die. But yeah, no, I I do like a lot of the longer shots this week. So let's just kind of get started with that. At 100-1, you can find Taylor Pendrith, and Taylor Pendrith has really been solid with his ball striking so far this season. He's been in the 97th percentile in driving, and his accuracy is kind of average, but he's in the 89th percentile also as an approach player. He's just been awesome with those approach clubs. The short game has been a big struggle for him this year, but he was excellent with the putter in 2024. So I find this drop off in putting ability to be very odd. He gained strokes putting here at TPC Sawgrass in 2 out of his 3 events, and that's including a tie for 13th finish. Last year, he missed the cut even though he gained strokes putting because of some bad ball striking. But with how good his ball striking has been lately, I'd be shocked if he had a bad ball striking week this week. But yeah, no, I just think he's long and fairly accurate off the tee and a very good approach player. So and obviously some historical success here. So I really feel like that. I really feel like that Taylor Pendrith is very undervalued at 100 to 1, especially in some of the bigger events that we've had this season so far at designated events. He was much higher up the betting board because of some solid performances at the Farmers and at Pebble Beach. Pebble Beach is very much a course like this that uh, doesn't necessarily reward distance, and you really need accuracy. So I really feel like that's something that could. I mean that's something that he can overcome here very easily. And if you look at the Cognizant Classic where he missed the cut, he honestly was creating plenty of opportunities and really should have been in that event. And he definitely should not have missed the cut. Like he had plenty of makeable opportunities throughout that week. So I do think that if the putting kind of comes back to its normal state, that Pendrith is going to be a tremendous value at this price. But yeah, that's enough about him. Let's move on to Laurie Cantor. And if you've heard Laurie Cantor's name this week, it's more likely than not that you've heard it because of um, him being the first live player to come back on the PGA Tour for an event. He doesn't have a PGA Tour card, but he made this a field due to exemptions that he earned on the DP World Tour, where he's been excellent. Over his last 28 starts, he has 10 top 20s, 6 top 5s, and 2 wins, one at Bahrain and the other at the European Open in Germany. And that also doesn't even include a tie for 25th finish at the Open Championship. Cantor is a great driver of the golf ball. He has really impressive distance, and also he's very accurate off the tee. He does not miss many fairways at all. Plus, he's been a very consistent approach player throughout his career as well. So, I mean, as a ball striker, I have no concerns about Laurie Cantor at all. Kind of like with Pendrith, the short game is a little bit of a concern, but I feel like he can definitely navigate himself throughout this event and this field. So I really like Laurie Cantor for this week, and I feel very, very confident that, especially at 165 to 1, that he can back that up at that price. Because in DP World Tour events, he is the favorite in basically all of those fields. He's known as the best player on the DP World Tour this year, and he definitely will be on the PGA Tour next season. So, I mean, this is a great opportunity for him to kind of make his name much more well known among the average fans. Laurie Cantor is a very good player, and he should not be at this price. After that, I got Rasmus Højgaard, and it's kind of crazy to see Rasmus so high up the odds board because people were in love with him in the first few starts in the PGA Tour, and he backed it up. He played great at Pebble. He played great at the Phoenix Open. Courses like this, where you need to be able to avoid water hazards and have some excellent ball striking. And he contended at those events. Obviously, he faltered a little bit on the weekend where some of the accuracy concerns kind of reared their heads, and he's not very great around the greens. But as a ball striker and a putter, he is excellent. He's a great player. He's in the 95th percentile in driving distance, and he's in the 82nd percentile in approach play. His putting has been very strong as well, like I just said, and that ranks out in the 81st percentile. So, I mean, after a great and dominant season on the DP World Tour last year, and some of the acumen that he's shown in designated events and bigger fields throughout the PGA Tour this year, I have no idea why he's this price. He did have a very poor event at the Genesis, but I mean, I think that's just a difficult golf course and something that can happen to any golfer. Like obviously, like shooting an 82 anywhere is not something that you really want to see, but I mean, I'm willing to give him a pass. That's happened to a lot of better players recently as well, like a Justin Thomas at a major. And he was the favorite, kind of one of the favorites going into the Mexico Open, and he really didn't have a great week there. But I think that's also just kind of he played so much golf, probably needed a little bit of a break. But I don't have no reason to see why he can't play well here. Obviously, the accuracy is a concern, around the greens are a concern, but he should not be 175 to 1 for his skill set and where he is at on the PGA Tour. I know some people have made an argument that he's not that much better than his brother, but I feel like he is better than his brother by a decent amount, especially given what we've seen on the DP World Tour last year. You know, he was better on the DP World Tour last year than pretty much any year that Nikolai has been on the DP World Tour, and Rasmus has won more events throughout his career. Um, he's a five-time DP World Tour winner, so he does have a decent amount of win equity, especially at 23 years old. So, I mean, I really don't understand why he's 175 to 1 for this week, especially after people being in love with him to begin the PGA Tour season. Just seems like a complete misprice for me. So yeah, no, I would highly recommend getting on him. I definitely can see him playing well this week. And then also, I like Kevin Yu. He's pretty much one of the last two players I have on my card this week. He's at 300 to 1, but he was another guy that so far this season, his ball striking has been insanely good. You know, he ranks in the 91st percentile overall in driving. You know, he's a very long hit, but also pretty accurate. Like, his accuracy is not below average by any means. He's in the 56th percentile in accuracy, and he's very good with the approach shots between 100 yards and above, just like some of these other guys that I'm taking this week. You know, the short game is definitely a concern. He has hemorrhaged a lot of strokes on the greens, despite having excellent ball striking, especially at the Mexico Open, where he was tremendous from tee to green, but could not buy a putt, resulting in a tie for 45 finish. At the Genesis Invitational and the Phoenix Open, he very much showed that he can play well, especially at those kind of events. He won last year at the Sanderson Farms Championship and showed some skill at other events. I just think overall, Kevin Yu is very underrated as a player because he just hasn't really come through with the ball strike, with the short game. I mean, throughout some of his starts, but as a ball striker, he's as good as anybody on the PGA Tour. And I think it's only a matter of time until he really starts to contend at these kind of events. You know, like we saw at the Genesis, you know, he can have a great tee to green week. It's just a matter if the putter can really be a positive for him. And I think that's possible at TPC Sawgrass. You know, he did gain a smidge of strokes putting last year here. Just wasn't that great with the approach clubs. But so far in 2025, he's been excellent on approach in basically every event besides the Century. So I think this is a much more consistent skill set for him now. And so I'm not really worried about that. And I think it's becoming more of a strength. And I'd love to see that, especially at TPC Sawgrass, given he's long, accurate, and now has great approach play. So if the putting can just kind of be very strong this week, you know, I could definitely see Kevin Yu paying off at a tremendous value, especially at 300 to 1. And my last pick this week is Jackson Suber, and he's 600 to 1. So he's really deep on the odds board, but at the end of the day, like, if you look at his strokes gain metrics to begin his PGA Tour career, he's consistently gaining strokes on approach. I think the biggest concern for him is with his driving accuracy. That's definitely been something where it's been a kind of a concern. But at the Cognizant, where there's a lot of water, he did have his best week in terms of driving accuracy. So I do think it is something that he's working on. Given that he's a Florida guy, he's probably familiar with this course, probably has played it plenty of times. He knows that that's something that he's going to need to do well this week in order to contend. The around the green and the putting have not really been big concerns. He's had some great putting weeks, he's had some bad putting weeks, and overall around the greens, he's been kind of average. But it's not something where it's ever been a major negative for him at any event. So approach play around the greens and putting, I have no reason to be concerned about him there. It's just a matter of if he can be accurate off the tee. And that's the biggest concern I probably have for him is like if he can be accurate because he obviously has shown that he has some respectable distance. But yeah, I think the accuracy is improving though. It's improved so much since the past few events. And it's not like he hasn't had any good results ever. He had a tie for sixth finish at the Sony Open and at the U.S. Open last year. He was among the top 20 and flirting around with the leaders for the first couple of days before really faltering on the weekend. So he's not really a guy I'm going to begrudge at all for that, given that, was one of his first real exposures to a field of that quality. But at 600 to 1, I think he's a great price. I think because of how strong his approach play has been, I would not be surprised if he had a great start to this week. But yeah, no, that's kind of how I'm playing this week. A lot of guys deep down the board. But but yeah, no, I'm excited for this week. I think it should be fun. I think I'm getting some guys at a great value. But let's hope they pan out. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed listening to my podcast. And good luck if you tail. Enjoy the players.